A single grain has fed civilizations for 10,000 years. It stores for 3 decades. It costs 50 cents a pound. And the food industry spends billions making sure you never learn its name. Here's what I mean by that. The average American family spends over $10,000 a year on food. And at any given moment, that family has roughly 3 days of supply in the house. 3 days. That is not a pantry. That is a countdown. Now, consider this. $200 worth of one grain packed in a single weekend provides a full year of caloric security for that same family. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what this grain is, where to buy it, how to store it for 30 years, and 3 ways to turn it into food your family will actually eat. Let me show you what they replaced it with, and why. Welcome to the channel. If you are new here, this is what we do. We find the practical knowledge that used to be common, the kind that kept families fed and safe for generations, and we bring it back. No hype, no fear selling, just the information that somebody decided you did not need anymore. If you believe your family's safety should not depend on a supply chain that carries 3 days of food, you are in the right place. Subscribe. Not because I need the numbers, because this is how buried knowledge gets unburied. Now, let us go back 10,000 years to where this started. Around 10,000 years ago, in the Fertile Crescent, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in modern-day Iraq and Syria, humans began cultivating wheat. That was not a minor development. That was the event that made civilization possible. Before wheat, humans were nomadic. After wheat, they built cities. The Egyptians understood this completely. During the dynastic period, pharaohs constructed massive state granaries along the Nile. These were not symbols of wealth. They were flood insurance. The Nile's annual flooding was unpredictable. A bad year meant famine. So Egypt stored grain, millions of pounds of it, whole kernels, sealed from moisture and air. And when the river failed to rise, those granaries kept an empire alive. Rome took the same principle and militarized it. Roman imperial logistics ran on grain. Every legion carried it. Every garrison stored it. The phrase bread in circuses was not a metaphor. It was policy. Rome understood that the fastest way to lose an empire was to let the grain supply fail. So they built supply chains that moved whole wheat across continents. Now, fast forward to 1847. A group of Mormon pioneers arrived in the Salt Lake Valley in Utah. They were isolated, no trade routes, no grocery stores, no government aid, and they survived in large part because they carried whole grain and they knew how to store it. That practice never stopped. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the LDS community, has maintained a formal food storage tradition from the mid-1800s to the present day. They operate home storage centers across the United States, where members and non-members alike can purchase and pack whole grains at cost. Millions of families participate. This is not theoretical. This is not fringe. This is the largest organized civilian food storage practice in America, and it centers on this exact grain. For millennia, every household knew how to store grain. Then, in the 1880s, something changed, and within a single generation, that knowledge disappeared. I will get to exactly what happened in a moment. But first, let me tell you about the vault. The vault is where I put the deep research. What you're watching right now is the surface. Behind this video are hours of sourced documentation, supplier comparisons, nutritional breakdowns, alternative grain profiles, equipment reviews, and step-by-step storage protocols that go far beyond what fits in a single video. Categories include long-term food preservation, water sourcing and purification, off-grid energy systems, medical preparedness, and financial resilience. No filler, no fluff, just the information, organized and cited. The link is in the description if you want to go deeper. But you do not need the vault to act on what I am about to show you. Everything you need is in the next 10 minutes. Now let me show you the science. What is actually inside this grain and why it works? The grain is wheat, specifically whole wheat berries, the intact kernel. Not flour, not bread, not cereal. The seed itself, the way it existed for 10,000 years before anyone thought to grind it into powder and sell it back to you in a bag. Here is what is inside a single wheat berry. Protein content runs between 10 and 14%, depending on variety. Hard red wheat sits at the higher end. That is comparable to eggs on a per-calorie basis. You also get B vitamins, including niacin, thiamine, and folate. Iron, magnesium, zinc, dietary fiber, complex carbohydrates for sustained energy, all of that in a kernel that fits on your fingertip. But here's where it gets remarkable. When you sprout a wheat berry, something changes at the molecular level. You soak the kernels for 8 to 12 hours. Then you drain them, rinse them twice a day, and within 1 to 3 days, you get sprouts. During that process, enzymes break down phytic acid, which is a compound that blocks mineral absorption in the dry kernel. Your body suddenly gets access to more of the iron, zinc, and magnesium that were locked up before. And then the real surprise, Sprouted wheat produces vitamin C. The dry kernel has none. 0. But the living sprout generates it. That single fact prevented scurvy. Scurvy killed more sailors and soldiers than combat for centuries. It was not a disease of malnutrition in the way most people think. It was a disease of storage. The foods that lasted on ships and in garrisons, hardtack, dried meat, salted provisions, had no vitamin C. But if those same soldiers and sailors had carried whole wheat berries and sprouted them in a jar with nothing but water, scurvy could have been prevented entirely. The World Food Program knows this. When the WWF ships emergency food aid to disaster zones and conflict regions, they prefer whole grain over flour. The reason is straightforward. Flour goes rancid. The oils in the germ oxidize once the kernel is broken. Shelf life drops from decades to months. Whole grain, sealed properly, outlasts every processed alternative. The WFP sends the kernel, not the powder, because the kernel works and the powder does not over 30 years. So if this grain is this good, this cheap, and this proven, why have you never seen one? Follow the money. In the 1880s, a technology called roller milling changed the grain industry permanently. Before roller milling, grain was stone ground. The whole kernel went in, and whole grain flour came out. One product, one price. Simple. Roller milling split the kernel into 3 parts. The starchy endosperm became white flour. The bran became a separate product. The germ, the most nutrient-dense part, became another separate product. One commodity became 3 revenue streams overnight. White flour was shelf-stable because the oils in the germ were gone. It looked clean. It baked predictably. And it could be sold at a massive markup. Raw wheat berries cost roughly 50 cents a pound when purchased in bulk, and you can find them as low as 35 cents a pound through co-ops or institutional suppliers. White flour at retail runs 60 cents to $1 a pound. Whole wheat flour, which is just the kernel ground back together, sells for 80 cents to over $2 a pound. The bran they removed gets sold as a premium health food. The germ gets sold as a supplement or fed to livestock. That is a 5 to 10 times markup over the raw grain. And the product they are selling you is nutritionally inferior to what you started with. Now add slotting fees. Every product on a grocery store shelf pays for that placement. Slotting fees can run tens of thousands of dollars per item per chain. A 50 cent a pound raw commodity with no brand, no packaging design, no advertising budget, and no repeat purchase cycle does not pay slotting fees. So it does not get shelf space. That is why you have never seen wheat berries in your grocery store. Not because they do not exist, not because they do not work, because no one makes money putting them there. The United States flour and bread industry generates tens of billions of dollars annually. Every dollar of that revenue depends on you not knowing that you could skip the entire supply chain and buy the raw kernel for 50 cents. No one had to conspire. The incentives did the work. When a single bulk purchase replaces a lifetime of flour, bread, cereal, and baked goods, every entity in that chain loses a customer, permanently. If this is the kind of information you think more people should have, subscribe and share this video. That is how this knowledge spreads. Not through advertising budgets, not through algorithms, through people who decide that someone they care about needs to hear this. Now, I want to be honest with you about what this grain cannot do. Wheat is not a complete food. It is deficient in lysine, which is an essential amino acid. It lacks vitamin A, vitamin B12, and adequate fat. You cannot live on wheat alone indefinitely. You need to pair it with beans or lentils for complete protein. You need a fat source, you need a basic multivitamin or dietary variety over time. If you have celiac disease, wheat will harm you. Celiac affects roughly 1% of the population. Broader gluten sensitivity is debated in scope, but it is real for some people. If that is you, the same storage principles apply to rice, oats, millet, sorghum, and buckwheat. The method works. The grain changes. And there's a practical reality. 400 pounds of wheat is heavy. It takes 11 to 12 5-gallon buckets. It requires 12 to 15 square feet of floor space. You need a grain mill to turn it into flour, and that mill needs either electricity or muscle. This is not a system that works if you buy it and forget it. You need to learn to use it. Now that you know what it can and cannot do, here is exactly how to do it. Step 1. Calculate. 400 pounds of wheat berries is the baseline for a family of 4 for 1 year. That is your caloric foundation, not your entire diet. Your foundation. Step 2. Source. Buy from bulk suppliers. Azure Standard, Pleasant Hill Grain, and LDS Home Storage Centers are 3 reliable options. Your target price is 50 cents a pound or less. Do not buy from Amazon at premium markup. Go direct. Step 3. Acquire your supplies. You need 11 to 12 food-grade 5-gallon buckets with Gamma Seal or standard lids. You need 5 ml Mylar bag size to fit those buckets. And you need 2,000 cc oxygen absorbers, 1 per bucket. Step 4. Pack and seal. Pour the wheat berries into the mylar bag inside the bucket. Fill to within 2 inches of the top. That gives you 33 to 36 pounds per bucket. Drop in one 2,000 cc oxygen absorber. Press the air out of the bag. Seal the mylar with a household clothes iron or a flat iron, pressing along the opening to create a continuous seal. Snap the bucket lid on tight. Label it with the contents and the date. Store in a cool, dark, dry location. A basement, a closet floor, a garage that stays below 75 degrees. Step 5. Get a grain mill. For grid down scenarios, a hand crank mill is essential. The Country Living Grain Mill and the Wonder Mill Junior Deluxe are both proven options. For daily use while the power is on, an electric mill like the Wonder Mill or Nutrimill saves time and effort. 3 to 5 cups of wheat berries yields enough flour for 1 loaf of bread. Step 6. Use it now. Do. Not store this and wait for a disaster. Grind flour and bake bread this week. Sprout a jar of berries on your kitchen counter. Cook whole berries like rice. Simmer for 45 to 60 minutes until tender. Then add to soups, salads, or serve as a side dish. The families who thrive on stored food are the families who eat it before they need it. Total investment, under $300. That includes the grain, the buckets, the mylar bags, the oxygen absorbers, and a hand crank mill. Under $300. A single weekend of work. And your family has a year of food that outlasts everything in your pantry by decades. Let me put this together for you. For 10,000 years, from the Fertile Crescent to Egyptian granaries to Roman legions to pioneer homesteads, whole grain storage was not a hobby. It was how civilization worked. Every empire that lasted understood one rule: store the kernel, feed the people. Then, in the 1880s, an industry figured out how to split that kernel apart and sell each piece separately for 5 to 10 times the price. And within a generation, the knowledge of how to store and use the whole grain vanished from common practice. Not because it stopped working, because it stopped making anyone money. The most effective long-term survival food in human history is available right now for 50 cents a pound. Legal, unregulated, no permit required, no prescription, no subscription. It sits in bulk bins and warehouse catalogs waiting for someone to notice it. $200, 1 weekend, 1 year of food. Send this video to one person who feeds a family. That is all I'm asking. One person. And know this. Executive Order 10998, signed in 1962, grants federal authority to control food resources during a declared national emergency. That authority has never been revoked. It is on the books right now. The time to store grain is before that authority is exercised, not after. You now know what most people never will. What you do with it is up to you. In the next video, I'm covering the second foundation of long-term food storage, the grain that pairs with wheat to create a complete protein. You do not want to miss that one. I will see you there.